welcome to Turf Wars Season 4, Episode 11. And we are going to have, this episode, no sound issues. It's going to be a great episode. First time, it's going to work straight away. It's going to be amazing. So, as you might notice, I'm also back in the studio. When I've got no sound issues, I've also got this amazing background designed by Kaylin Conrad. Yeah, the whole show is just going to be a lot higher budget than it was 2 weeks ago, because for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, I went on holiday for 2 weeks. Well, for 1 week. I was away from this show for 2 weeks. And while I was away in Europe, I decided that I would try and do a show on the road, because I had loads to rant about and stuff. But basically, I don't know, I didn't really plan it well enough, and it was a bit chaotic. So thanks for everyone who turned up for that. I think if I do another show on the road, I'm going to put a lot. I've learned some things. Maybe not going to quite do it so much, but I did want to kind of mention holiday, because as well as explaining why the show was not up to my usual standards last time, but is now going to be above my usual standards, because this is going to be a great episode. Because I'm in rant mode already, but also just kind of wanted to talk about like going on holiday, not as a flex. I mean, obviously I'm very privileged to be able to go on holiday. Here is a picture of me on holiday. I actually went to Portugal, which was amazing. Spent some time on the beach, saw some amazing rock formations, ate some great food, had a great time, great people. It was just a good time. And so I did this first episode of Turf Wars, like right at the start of holiday, like first day we were away. So I was still kind of in normal mode. And then after that, I was like, that was not the best episode I've ever done. So next week I'm not going to do it. And then I'll come back after that. And I just got kind of my head into normal person mode. I didn't think about trans stuff. I didn't go on Twitter much. I just like explored and relaxed. And then when I got back from holiday, I was like, right, I'm going to not dive back in. I'm going to, just take some time out and sort of recalibrate. And I saw my friends. I went to some classes and, did work at my job. And then we ended up watching Eurovision Song Contest, which was really fun. It's a good time. I hosted for the first time. It was good. We had a nice barbecue and things. And then, like, after that was all over, I was suddenly, like, at the end of the time I had allotted myself to have a break from the horror of trans rights. And, like, I'd got in bed and straight away I had this, like, anxiety attack about the EHRC thing and the kind of threat to take away trans people's human rights in this country. And it was horrible. It's like overwhelming how horrible it is to come back to real life. And like the gender criticals are all like, oh, trans people are delusional. And like, in a way, for 2 weeks, I kind of pretended to, it was almost like delusion. I was pretending that I was not scared of the future and pretending that like my normal day-to-day life was just normal again, like it was, years ago. Before the trans panic became so extreme. And yeah, it was nice. And now it's kind of horrible to be back. I mean, it's not the same. When they say trans people are delusional, they mean the fact that we exist is delusional. They're just trying to insult trans people and call us all mentally ill as an excuse to take away our human rights. But so it's not really what they're saying. But I guess what I'm saying is it's given me a lot of energy to take a break, and I had a really good time just living my life. I also went to a Pokemon cards event and played Pokemon cards for the first time for like 20 years. It was amazing. So I just think that's important to do, and I hope everyone does that. And it did make me think, do I even want to do this episode today? But I do. Like, I've got a lot of rage about trans rights in me to rant at all you guys. So and I hope that, people benefit from this show. Yeah, so that's a good super chat. Thank you very much. Do write to your MP about the EHRC and all trans rights stuff. That's obviously not the only thing. It's just the thing that's stressing me the most. But yeah, anyway, we're back. It's going to be good. We're going to have a good episode. We've got a lot of shit gender critical men to talk about. The whole like gender critical man segment. Well, you know, some gender critical women. We're not going to discriminate here. They're all horrible people, so let's talk about all of them. But we might as well start. Let's get on to the news. So, the first bit of news is quite exciting. It's kind of minor, but at the same time, it's cool. So, the UK had some elections, just local elections. So this isn't like for the Prime Minister, and it's not for MPs. It's like for councillors and small, you know, town areas and people who do low-level administration running the country. So it's still kind of important, but it's not like major elections, but it's usually a sign of where things are heading, which is quite good. And in Manchester, they had the first ever openly trans councillor in Manchester. So this, you know, it's like first ever left-handed people, you know, wearing blue socks or something. But it's still something. It's still exciting. It's still progress. It's a Liberal Democrat candidate, and they beat the Labour Party by 300 votes out of, and got 1,500, so Labour got 1,200. So that's cool. You know, congratulations to Chris. And she said, as historic as it is, it just proves that trans people want to live our lives and be out there. So that's what I want to do. That's just great. There is a little interview actually here. Let's watch this.
For Ancoats, but also the first openly trans councillor as far as I'm aware. Congratulations on your result, and this makes you only a Liberal Democrat. Congratulations, and secondly, how you feel? Also, the first openly.
I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so grateful for the trust that's been put in me, and I know it's a historic moment, but I've really stood first for my community, my neighbours and friends who live in Ancoats and Beswick. Really hope I can do them proud, and I'm so proud to be given the option to serve. And historic as it is, it just kind of proves that trans people, we just want to just live our lives and be out there. So that's what I want to do. Thank you.
Amazing. Sorry about clicking the wrong button there. That's, you know, that's just what we like to see. But what we also like to see, and this is very small level UK focus, but I think this is a bigger sign. So this is the overall election results. And as you can see, there are thousands and thousands of these council votes over the whole country. The Conservatives, who are the party in charge at the moment, who are like our Republicans, lost 1,000 councillors, or 1,000 seats, I think, which is very bad. Absolutely decimated. They're still the second biggest one, which is pretty depressing, but that's a pretty big swing. But what also is worth pointing out is, obviously, so that, you know, in the UK we have multiple parties you can vote for, but it is kind of a two-party system. Usually it's just between Conservatives and Labour, at least in the last, you know, few years. And so you would expect Labour to sort of cannibalise this massive 1,000 seat drop. But actually they didn't really. I mean, they got like half of it, but the Liberal Democrats almost got just as many. And Greens also did really well too. So this is more a massive rejection of the Conservatives than it is a massive support for Labour. And of course, Labour are claiming it's massive support for them. And I've even seen the Conservatives saying that it's a win for them somehow. Like, everyone's going to claim it's a win. But I think looking at these numbers, what this is saying is what the Conservatives are doing is very unpopular. And what Keir Starmer is doing is a bit more popular, but like not inspiringly popular, which could well be completely unrelated to trans rights, and I think it probably is, because most people don't care about trans people, but the kind of vibe that they're all going with, you know, the Labour are trying to be the centre-right party and the Conservatives are trying to be the fascist party. People don't really like any of that, so that's good. I think good news. So moving over to the USA, where we have a picture of an old white cis man. Very surprising, from Nebraska. Nebraska amends anti-trans healthcare bill to ban abortion after just 12 weeks. And I guess I wanted to highlight this because, like, it's just so blatant. I just can't believe in the UK that the media and politicians and stuff are still pretending that there's some kind of link between anti-trans and pro-women's rights, when it's just so obvious from everywhere else in the world, and also in the UK, that all of the anti-trans people, there's the anti-women people as well. Like, I mean, a bill banning trans healthcare, it overlaps so much with banning abortion. It's an attack on bodily autonomy. Like, it's authoritarianism over medical decisions when doctors and experts should be the one making the call on what medication's available. It's to do with hormones. Like, of course these things go together. It's so easy when you write a bill saying we're going to ban hormones for people and we're going to override what the doctors say and we don't care if it causes suffering and deaths. Like, you know, you've already set that up. Just changing it from being anti-trans to also include anti-abortion, or changing it from being anti-abortion to also include anti-trans, is just like, it's a small step. It's a much smaller step than getting one of these bills through in the first place. And it makes sense strategically to try and get the anti-trans bills through because they're more popular. So as this article highlights, Republican. So the act is called Let Them Grow. I mean, it should be called Let Them Suffer Act, because that's what this is about. Let them grow, like, let them go through the wrong puberty and suffer the rest of their lives, when we could also let them grow with the help they need to live happier lives. But now the legislation also includes anti-abortion stuff. So who knows if that'll pass, but I just think it's worth highlighting this kind of rubbish. I guess this is news. So on May the 6th, which was a couple of weeks ago, while I was still on holiday and enjoying my life, we had the 90th anniversary of the world's first trans clinic in the Weimar Republic in Germany being broken into and occupied by the Nazis, and then a few days later the library was raided and over 20,000 books were burned. And what would become one of the first large public book burnings by the Nazi regime. And I just think it's so important to talk about this stuff because it's all happening again. Like, people want to do this again. They want to destroy research into trans people. And the Nazis are back marching on the streets. And, you know, as we've seen in previous episodes of this show, in multiple countries around the world, and people are still trying to downplay it and say, oh, it's not the same, it's not the same. When the Nazis broke in to this research institute and destroyed the books, all of the fucking centrist liberal types who would have been pretending to be disgusted by the war crimes the Nazis later went on to commit, they would have been, oh, well, there's two sides to this, and oh, it's very difficult, and I have concerns about hormones. And it's just important to remember this stuff happens. And I also thought it was worth highlighting this article because the headline of this article is, I just learned this famous Nazi book burning happened at the world's first trans clinic. And so this author, Marty Davies, is saying they just learned about it. And I think a lot of people don't know about this. And, you know, it's important to note, part of, you know, these kind of war crimes and genocide stuff is hiding them. That's a key part of it. That's why, you know, being a Holocaust denier today or a Nazi war crimes denier is so indicative of them being a Nazi. I mean, it's like one and the same thing, because although they want to do these things, they also try and cover up that they're doing them because then they don't get so much pushback. And they go on in the article to say, you know, if Section 28 wasn't in place without school, would I have learned the full story of the Nazi book burnings? Perhaps if my class and I had learnt that the Nazis had targeted the cis gay Jewish visionary Magnus Hirschfeld. that their trans clinic was to host the first of these infamous incidents, maybe it would have sent us a signal that attacking the trans community leaves you on the wrong side of history. Perhaps I would have been able to embrace my gender identity as a child. Perhaps I would have felt able to share that with my friends or found a community in solidarity with other trans kids. Yeah, exactly. So these, like, extreme and horrific Section 28 laws, but obviously much milder than Nazism and what the Nazis did, these still have huge impacts and cover this stuff up and set the scene for the anti-trans movement today. I mean, now my generation, the generation who grew up in Section 28, are in going into the media industry and politics and all this kind of stuff. We are totally ignorant of all this LGBT stuff. So when it's all happening again and echoing, and we're seeing the exact same things again, we don't know, and so we're more easily tricked by it. So that's why we have to remember this stuff, and that's why we can't have things like Section 28 happening again. We'll just highlight this other quote here so this is from Queer AF. They highlight that the Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention explains that a fundamentalist gender binary was a key feature of Nazi racial politics and genocide, adding that this is also a feature of the modern gender critical movement's ideology. Which is true. But yeah, just thought it was worth highlighting that. So now on to some more news. Sorry, it's more UK news, but I feel like most people who watch this show are UK, and people like to laugh at the UK. So if you're not from the UK here, you can write your... I saw someone in chat saying, Katie, can you please respond to the allegations that you're British? And, I admit it, unfortunately. But so there's something in Europe called the Rainbow Map, and it's done by the charity ILGA Europe. It's a big international charity that deals with LGBT rights in Europe. And they ranked all 49 European nations on LGBT rights, and the UK has dropped even further. We are now 17th. We were 14th in 2020, and in 2015 we were number 1. So something worth highlighting, which I don't know if this article actually does, is that each country is given a score. So here's the map, and you can see like Iceland up here is 71 and Russia here is 8 out of 100. The UK's score of 53 hasn't actually changed. So although we have slipped down from 14th to 17th, that's actually just because 3 countries have overtaken us. And I think that's Ireland, Germany, and maybe Netherlands. But yeah, so in this case, we haven't lost any rights since last year, obviously, and the media rhetoric is extreme, and that's why we had dropped down places before. But it's not, I wouldn't say this is panic nosedive, we're going to be on, level with Russia in 5 years or anything. But in fact, if anything, it's kind of good news to say that Europe is moving ahead without us while we dilly-dally around with the trans panic. But I think this map is interesting and also useful if you're looking for somewhere safe to live with your family. If you live in one of these countries that has disastrously bad rights, like Azerbaijan here only has 2% on this map. Obviously, ILGA are just one charity that overlooks this. They are experts in this field, but it's not authoritative. Maybe you live in an area of one of these countries which is a lot better than the average, or, if you're a cis gay person, this map also includes trans rights, so maybe it doesn't affect you as much I don't know, but it's still an important measure of where we are, and just says how disgraceful it is that the UK, who were once Europe and maybe even world leaders on LGBT rights, despite, yes, I know the UK was kind of the inventors of anti-gay laws 200 years ago when we're colonizing everywhere, which we will catch up to later about how bad British imperialism was. But it's sad to see us lagging behind now, and I hope that we can turn it around. Thank you very much, Elena, for the kind super chat. I'm glad that you feel uplifted by this show. I don't think there's a little bit here to just what the report said. So the in-depth report revealed anti-trans rhetoric has caused serious damage to the UK's ranking again, with ILGA Europe citing hostile reporting by mainstream newspapers, transport bans, the former Prime Minister excluding trans people from promised outlawing of conversion therapy, and then the anti-trans group LGB Alliance achieving charity status. Interesting that that even came up in this. Like, I mean, I don't know how, obviously LGB Alliance get loads of right-wing funding, so that's why they're such a big group, but it's literally just 5 incompetent gender-critical people in a trench coat. Like, they've done nothing. They're meaningless. They're so stupid. But I guess they are one of the most prominent gender-critical groups. And also hate crimes have gone up a lot, so that's pretty sad. We will mention LGB Alliance in a little bit, I think. Oh yeah, very soon. So another thing to mention, more UK stuff, is we had a visit from the United Nations, the UN, independent expert on the protection against violence and discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. So this is basically the UN's LGBT top watchdog dude, who goes around and writes reports on various countries saying how good they are, how bad they are, where they're heading, and what needs to improve and what is cause for concern. And there's a big report. I'll put this in the description. It's not there yet, but I will link it in. So if you're watching this after the show, then it will be there to click. And there's a lot of stuff here, and it's worth reading. I mean, it's quite accurate. If anything, I think it's like downplaying some things, not to the point where it's frustrating, but just things where they say, oh, and the government has said they're not, that they're doing this, and you're like, the government's not going to fucking do that. But it's very grounded, I think. It's maybe it shows that I am a slightly more hyperbolic than this. I don't know, but maybe I'm just more realistic. But it is a kind of reasonable report from what I've read. But I guess what I wanted to highlight here is the I don't know, this expert guy. He talked to loads of different groups. He actually talked to Trans Safety Network, which was good. I'm glad they managed to get in there, and loads of other LGBT rights groups, loads of feminist groups, and also the UK government and the EHRC, the Equality and Human Rights Commission. And he had a meeting with them because it says he was particularly alarmed by the letter which advised that defining the term sex as biological sex under the Equality Act would bring greater legal clarity, and highlights how the Scottish EHRC totally disagrees and says it's a load of rubbish. But it says, and this is a bit I really want to hammer home how utterly fucking ridiculous this is, and how what we've been saying this whole time has been true. In a meeting with the EHRC on the 4th of May 2023, the independent expert was shocked. Like when they write these words like, oh, I was shocked to hear that, colloquially it doesn't sound that extreme, but when they're like, this is a fucking UN's top dude for LGBT rights, and he's saying he was shocked. It always has a bit more gravity, I think. Was shocked to hear that the EHRC offered that advice without itself having any definition of biological sex. UK law provides no such definition either. And here's the bit: the EHRC, however, specifically conceded that in the context of the letter, the intended meaning of the term biological sex is to define women as women who are not trans. It's just so... Like, when you see this stuff, like, we've been saying this is what they've been doing for like nearly a decade now. They have no fucking definition. They don't know what they're doing. These are the top people for this in the entire country. The gender critical movement has been maneuvering to get their wacko cultists in positions of power for like 7 years. And they've finally done it. They've got one of their cultist clowns in charge of the EHRC, with like all of this gender critical knowledge and meeting with LGB Alliance and all of their biggest brains and lawyers and stuff. And they still have no fucking idea. They have no definition. They can't come up with one. And they end up having to concede when it's an official capacity and they can't worm around it, that actually really what they want to do is just take away trans women's rights. That's it. That's the whole fucking point of this. It's what we've been saying the whole time since it started, and here we are. Written by the UN's top guy for LGBT rights. As one commissioner elaborated, under the Equality Act, a trans woman who does have a GRC is a woman under current law. If the government decides to make the amendment, they don't need to define biological sex. They can do it by way of exclusion of the GRA. So literally what we were saying, they're just going to sneakily repeal the GRA. This is just repeal the GRA in a sneaky backdoor way. The UN guy then says, it then follows that the objective of the EHRC was to offer the government a formula through which it could carry out discriminatory distinctions currently unlawful under UK law and that will remain so under international human rights law. The independent expert is of the opinion that this action of the EHRC is wholly unbecoming of an institution created to stand up for those in need of protection and hold governments to account for their human rights obligations. Just unreal. Like, I'm very glad that this is in, like, the most official thing it can be. You know, but written in black and white, reported to the UN, absolute disgrace, and just so ridiculous that they just have nothing. They literally have nothing. Or the whole gender critical movement is trans people, yuck, and then, oh, how can I express that differently? Trans women are men, and that is literally their entire argument. The whole premise, just that core belief, no justifications, no ability to describe anything. Like, they've got their top fucking minds in, and they still can't even come up with a definition of biological sex because they know as soon as they try it, it's not going to work, and it's going to start stamping over other people's rights, and it's just such a fucking mess. But to make it even worse, it gets worse. UK Equality's watchdog, that's the EHRC, denies that making sex mean biological sex would harm trans rights. Here she is, fucking dickhead loser. I'm pressing the button. I can't remember if she's been dickhead of the week before, but she is dickhead of the week this week. EHRC chair, Kishwa Falconer, said that it doesn't believe that changing the Equality Act, specifically to exclude trans women from the protections they have today, would affect trans women and trans people in general. Like, this also affects trans men too, legally. It doesn't affect non-binary people because they don't have any rights in the UK anyway. I mean, I guess it does affect non-binary people kind of, because lots of them will have transitioned and changed legal sex, but this affects most trans people, and here she is just fucking lying. She knows what she's doing. Like, they all know what they're doing. When you have a meeting in official capacity and you have to say, we don't have a definition of biological sex, because there isn't a strict one that will come up with binary categories. This isn't me saying that biological sex doesn't exist. This is the opposite. This is me saying, because biological sex exists, you cannot have a binary category system. And because of that, she can't give a definition. And so has to say, oh yeah, all we're going to do is take away trans people's rights and exclude trans women from protections women have today. And then turn around to the fucking media and say literally the exact opposite. Because she is a liar. Absolute fucking loser. Yeah. Very, very frustrated at how stupid this whole thing is. And Pink News reports on this. Pink News is fairly decent at covering this kind of stuff. They were quite a small media outlet, and they don't have the like big name influence that like the Guardian does. The Guardian isn't reporting on this because the Guardian is gender critical. None of the big newspapers. If one major British media organization decided to actually report on the gender critical movement, they could have an absolute field day. These ridiculous clowns in charge making the most stupid decisions based on absolutely nothing, unable to justify it. Like, if you interviewed this loser or any of the others and actually just pin them down, you can make them look so stupid. You get so many scoops. It's just, so frustrating. Right. As you can see, I'm in rant mode. So now we're going to look at one of the groups that met with this UN dude was LGB Alliance. I think it's garbage that he met with them at all. I guess he felt like he had to hear from both sides or whatever. And LGB Alliance themselves published this little explanation. They say what they did and stuff, and they've given a little summary at the end. And it makes them look fucking mental. So they say the topics they've raised with this UN guy, being like, and then written his responses, and it just makes LGB Alliance look stupid as shit. So, detransition as sex-based violence. So they're shortened for the UN guy as VMB. His name is Victor. I've forgotten his name. As Victor something. Anyway, VMB, UN dude, has seen no evidence that this is a major problem. He has not seen the need to include sterilization and unnecessary surgery on young gender non-conforming people in any of his thematic reports. So they're trying to suggest that he hasn't seen sex-based violence as an issue. That isn't at all that's just incorrect. But this part where he doesn't see the need to include conspiracy theory nonsense in his reports, I mean, yeah, because there's no evidence for it. Internalized homophobia driving young people to transition. He has seen no evidence for this. Like, yeah, because there's no evidence for it. Because you're fucking conspiracy theory nut jobs. The Cass Review, like one of their little cult documents, he believes that his views on the medicalization of gender his views on trans healthcare are international best practice, because they literally are. Like, that is a fact. Gender affirmation. UN dude believes that all states should include gender affirmation, puberty blockers, hormones, and surgery in sexuality education. Yeah. He believes this view is uncontested as family planning, because it fucking is. It's just unreal. 2010 Equality Act and Gender Identity. He believes that the protected characteristic of gender reassignment means gender identity. Because it does. Self-ID. BNB believes that the UK has signed up to the concepts of gender identity and self-ID by virtue of being a signatory to the Rome Statute. Because they have. And now we really ramp up the wacky conspiracy. Lesbians rejecting the prospect of male-bodied sexual partners is described as akin to anti-Semites or racists. He has no comment. Because what the fucking shit are you talking about? If you're a lesbian, or a gay man, or a bisexual person, or a frog or something, anyone, a straight person, and you don't want to have... If you're rejecting the prospect of sexual partners of anyone, for any reason, that's okay. Well, if you're a racist and you're rejecting sexual partners because you're racist, then that is a little bit like if you're an anti-Semite who is rejecting sexual partners because they're Jewish as the only category, or the only reason why. And that is a little bit like rejecting someone purely because they're bisexual, or rejecting someone purely because they're trans. But if you aren't attracted to someone, then that isn't you rejecting them because they're one of their things. Like, if you're like, oh no, I don't find that guy attractive, and then you find out that he's left-handed, and he's like, discrimination against left-handed, that's not what's going on here. So he's got no comment, because like this is part of this like thing the BBC published, their ridiculous conspiracy theory that trans people are pressuring cis people into sex, when it's just absolutely the other way round. But then cotton sealing, and I feel like this is if someone's talking about internalized homophobia driving young people to transition, that's like, they're probably gender critical. They probably are a bit culty, and they probably an idiot. If they start phrasing things like this, then rejecting the prospect of male-bodied, then they're a gender-critical cultist, and they're probably brain rot, and there's probably no coming back for them. But if they're talking about the cotton ceiling, they have absolutely lost their mind. Their brain has oozed out of their ear, and it is gone. They're never coming back. He hasn't heard of it. Do you know why he hasn't heard of it? Because it's a fucking insane conspiracy theory that only J.K. Rowling fans know. No one... So this is allegedly some, like, doctrine of trans people. Almost every single time anyone mentions this, I get loads of DMs saying, what is this? And, like, no one knows. Like, I mean, loads of people watching this are like, what the fuck even is this? I'm not even going to explain it. This is a ridiculous transphobic conspiracy theory that not even all gender critical people believe because it's so fucking ridiculous. And finally, we have no information on whether he is influenced by funding from Arcus Foundation, who have a long history of trans activism, because it's not real activism. But we will ask for investigation on that. But, like, so this Arcus Foundation is owned by John Stryker, who is one of the people that Jennifer Bilek always highlights as one of the billionaires pulling the strings behind the trans movement. So we have no information. So literally just nothing. They're just coming out from nowhere. Like, is he influenced by a billionaire shadowy funding the stuff? And John Stryker's one of the people. He's not actually Jewish, but he's one of the people that anti-Semites often accuse of being Jewish for some reason. I think it's because he's a billionaire who funds human rights. But he often gets linked together with George Soros, Jennifer Pritzker, and one other. And if you go back and watch the episode of XX Factor I did with Krista Peterson about the Jennifer Bilek theories, if you like the stuff that these actual open anti-Semites who were mentioned as part of some of the research base for where she got some of her ideas from, they will often just talk about John Stryker as if he's Jewish. And the reason I'm saying this isn't to suggest, I'm not claiming that LGB Alliance are all anti-Semites or anything like this, but what I am claiming is that, well, this is a conspiracy theory. Like, it's nonsense. I mean, maybe there's some funding from an organization that funds LGBT rights and other human rights, like there will be for loads. I mean, loads of human rights organizations to which some billionaires donate to because they want to get tax breaks will be funding the UN and research into LGBT rights and stuff. But they just always pick the same ones. And it, like, the gender critical movement as a movement already has a problem with anti-Semitism. It's already got, LGB Alliance themselves did follow Jennifer Bilek. I don't know if they still do or not. But at the time we did that episode, they were one of the many mainstream gender critical groups and people who were, following her, and many of them were promoting her. And lots of them still do. And it's just like, I don't know, maybe it's just random. Maybe they have some evidence that they can't publish, suggesting that this organization funds them, as if that's maybe, why is that a bad thing anyway? But it just looks like more gender critical conspiracy theory nonsense, especially after just cracking this out. So who knows? Just embarrassing that they wrote that themselves. Oh, I didn't mean to have that open. So right, now we're moving on to our gender critical man section. So the clowns are coming. I'm going to start off with Buck Angel, who is a gender critical man and also a trans person. If you haven't heard of him, he's like the most desperate of all trans men for validation. I think I guess his like trans woman counterpart is Blair White, but I don't know, I just feel like he's more desperate. I don't want to say he's the most desperate and pathetic trans person, because there's probably quite a few that contend for that, but like, he's very cringe. But one of his things that he constantly does in order to try and get validation is basically put other trans people down. I think that's all he ever does now. But here's something that Dr. Ben, friend of the show, has highlighted from Buck Angel. Buck Angel says, you need to be diagnosed by a real therapist, not affirmation therapy. Like, what does that mean? That's what therapy is. Like, you need to be diagnosed by... So when he says a real therapist, but then excludes most real therapists, I presume... Well, I mean, he just doesn't know what he's talking about. But you need to be diagnosed by a real therapist with gender dysphoria to be transsexual. Period. Whatever else you choose to identify as is on you, but it isn't trans. You cannot self-ID as trans. It's a mental disorder that needs an actual diagnosis. Stop co-opting a mental disorder. So, firstly, being trans isn't a mental disorder. But the main thing here, and what Ben has highlighted, is, does this mean if someone has cancer but doesn't get a diagnosis, then it's not actually cancer? He is claiming that you're not trans until you're diagnosed as trans, but what are they diagnosing if not transness? I mean, this is the same with any medical condition. Like, it's like saying you've not got a broken leg until they've diagnosed you as having a broken leg. But it's like, do you know how they diagnose whether you've got a broken leg or not? They look and see if your leg is broken, you stupid idiot. Like, how do they diagnose you as trans if not looking to see whether you are already trans? Like, that is literally what a diagnosis is. Like, absolute clown. How do these people operate? How do they just go through life writing things this stupid? It's just so ridiculous how held up as like some kind of thinker of the gender critical movement, of gender critical trans people. Here's Poppy. But yeah, just completely ridiculous. But I thought he would ease us in to gender critical men, because as clownish as he is not one of the worst gender critical men. They get worse. So we'll talk a little bit about this. Is kind of more just general YouTube drama news, but I thought I'd mention him. So, gender critical man and right-wing extremist Stephen Crowder, who you might have heard of if you've been on YouTube. He's like one of the biggest right-wing talk dudes on YouTube. He's getting divorced. And there's been all kinds of meme and talk about this, and I'm probably not the best person to talk about this because I'm talking about trans rights and less about drama. It's probably worth going and watching some videos on him because he's very dunkable. He's ridiculous, but he's also a massive dickhead, and he's also a misogynist. But he's been doing this defending women nonsense and saying, you know, that he opposes trans rights because of women and all this kind of stuff. And he's part of the kind of mainstream media talking head type right-wing Americans who do that. And he's some clips of him coming out being abusive to his wife, and so she's asked for a divorce, or she's having a divorce. But what I just thought I'd highlight is when he talked about it, he obviously didn't accept any responsibility. He said that the reason, like, he was like, oh, this is entirely my fault because I picked the wrong wife. Like, no, it's entirely your fault because you're an abusive loser. He was like smoking a cigar, telling his pregnant wife to go and deal with the sick dog, when she was worried that the medicine might be bad for pregnant people. Like, absolute garbage person. But of course he's a garbage person because, like everyone who opposes trans rights and who supports like gender critical stuff, they support patriarchy, and he's more extreme than many, but thinks women are subordinate to men, and they're like, she should know her place and do her wifely duties. But when he talks about it, he says, getting a divorce was not my choice. My then wife decided that she didn't want to be married anymore, and in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted. What? Like, what kind of, like, control freak, authoritarian, misogynist loser do you have to be that when your partner, well, when your wife, because it's usually this way around, when your wife wants a divorce because you're a shit person and you don't get on as a couple, you whine that that's legal? Like, so he's saying that in his dream world she wouldn't be able to ask for a divorce, so he'd just carry on being abusive and she would just have to live a terrible life. But this is Rolling Stone article, says the next front on the GOP's war on women is no-fault divorce. So apparently in Texas, at least, there have been politicians floating the idea that they want to get rid of no-fault divorce. Apparently they actually have no-fault divorce in all 50 states, which is good. And some of them had it in 1969, and the UK only recently got it. So America was leading the way on that one. And it's kind of terrifying, but this does come with all of this stuff. Like, trans people are the thin edge of the wedge, as was abortion in the USA, but in the UK it's trans people and then it'll be abortion, and then things like no-fault divorce, and then eventually divorce at all. I mean, they will just keep pushing. There's no limit to this. There's no like, oh, yeah, once we've eradicated trans people, then I'll be happy. It's like, well, once you've eradicated trans people, you're going to want to try and wipe gay people out, and then you want to get rid of abortion, and then it won't be long till you're trying to get rid of interracial marriage again. And I don't know, it's just, of course. But anyway, there are even, I don't know, there were worse gender critical men than Steven Crowder. There are different forms. He's mega famous, and that's why he's bad, and people listen to what he's saying. There's like millions of viewers. But these low-level grunts are also just fucking awful people. So this dude started a group called Suffragents. And you might know him because his old name was Dads Against Groomers, or Dads for something. I can't remember what his name was now. We might see it in a second. But he's been harassing me. He's been reply-going me for ages. Writing really creepy stuff. Like, he's obviously one of these massive creepo pricks. And he started this new group and got loads of support. And he says, well, I thought I'd best introduce myself. It's gone a little nuts. Thousands of new supporters, including the Queen, J.K. Rowling. Always super cringe when they talk about her as if she's a god or a deity or a royalty or something, but that's how they treat her because she's a cult leader. Hi, I'm Chris, a full-time dad who has just had enough of seeing child abuse disguised as care being pushed and seeing women's rights eroded in favour of blah, 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 standard gender critical man rubbish. And then he was boasting here. By the way, these aren't my screenshots because this happened while I was on holiday and I might have missed some of the nuance in this, but I do trust that all of these screenshots are real. Because I know this person who I do recommend you follow. I Can See Forever One on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, they often have good scoops and stuff. But anyway, his oh, here we go. Dads. Oh, it is a Dads Against. It was Dads Against Groomers, and it's just a 4 for the A's. I'm not much for fanboying over anyone, but I have so much respect for this woman's resilience and her stand for women and girls. This made my week. Thanks you, J.K. Rowling, for the follow. Now I have to ask, if this amazing woman is following Suffragents, why aren't you? And here we are, followed by J.K. Rowling. And, you know, he's doing all the normal gender critical man stuff, like, I just have concerns, and I'm just defending women. I just really care about these amazing, resilient women, and they're so strong, fighting against child abuse. And then, very shortly afterwards, this little video came out of him talking, and this has another lady's commentary over the top, and I don't know who she is, but I do agree with what she says. So you hear two voices kind of talking at once. One is this guy, and one is just another lady who isn't one of these talking, but she's like reviewing it. And this is the only clip I managed to find, which is from On a Clear Day I Can See Forever. Anyway, try and listen to what he says here.
She must have hit me in numerous amount of times, like
100 fucking times.
I hit her once,
knocked her the fuck out.
And knocked her the fuck out.
Yeah, knocked her the fuck out. I'm sorry. When you describe knocking somebody out who is your own girlfriend, you got knocked the fuck out. That is pride. That's happiness. I knocked her the fuck out.
So just listen to that again, because everyone's saying the volume was a bit too loud, but also just to get his thing.
She must have hit me in numerous amount of times, like
100 fucking times.
So he's describing how his partner hit him, which we'll just take him at his word. That's horrible, and it's sad when anyone gets abused by their partner, and it does happen to men.
I hit her once.
He hit once, so I'm already a bit suspicious when anyone does this. Like, they hit me hundreds of times, and I hit them just one time, and like, did you though? And was that the only thing going on? But you know,
The fuck out.
And knocked her the fuck out.
Yeah.
but like this lady said, he describes it himself as I knocked her the fuck out. Like, that doesn't, to me, sound like someone who regrets doing it. Anyway, this little clip came out of him admitting to knocking out his girlfriend, which is bleak. And rather than him, like, he doesn't seem resentful in that to me. Not resentful, regretful. He doesn't seem regretful in that to me. And maybe he could have said, because apparently this happened when he was 19, so he could have said, oh, you know, I was a terrible person then, and I've grown, it's the worst thing I've ever done, or, you know, there was loads of abuse, and it was in self-defense, or all of these kinds of things. He instead just went on some whiny rampage. I will come on to the next thing in a sec. About gender-critical women. The gender-critical movement is headed by toxic, man-hating women. I came up with something to try and engage men, and to try and get them on board with showing support for women against the medical transition of children. But because I Am Man started to get attention and was being followed by such women as J.K. Rowling, their toxic jealousy and man-hatred resulted in complete Twitter pylon of me. Like, also just want to point out how fucking weak this is. Like, these people, they get like 1,000 followers and then they get what, a 500-person pylon and they have a little meltdown. I mean, I know it's horrible, but he's been joining in and the pylon's bigger than that on me for ages. And I've not been having a little whiny meltdown and saying that, you know, all women are inherently jealous of me or whatever. Cringe this is. The vilification of me as a person, women harassing and verbally abusing me while spreading lies about me. We did just watch a video, though, of you, didn't we, mate? Saying something pretty bleak. This resulted in me deleting my Twitter that was receiving positive attention, blah, 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 blah. He even goes on to whine about Kelly J. Keane. I think he's... Yeah, anyway. The likes of Kelly J. Keane don't want the end of this gender nonsense, because if it ends, what have they got left? Nothing. That's what her tagline should go from I never lose to I don't want to win. Which just maybe slightly true and also quite a good little dig. But other than that, like, absolute knobhead. Just the fact it was called Suffragents, which is already a men's rights activist group, and then it turned out that he was just the same whiny incel MRA type that they all are. And it just took like, I don't know how quickly this went down, but he rose and fell whilst I was on holiday and has now disappeared. So just embarrassing. Like, here we go. You women are fucking disgusting bullies. Like, always just, why are you just going on about it being women? Like, I mean, lots of gender critical men would have sympathized with you knocking the fuck out of your girlfriend. But lots won't. Like, some would have at least made an effort to pretend they cared that you were bad for that. But you're just going for the women. I'm not the one in the wrong here. Women are behaving just like trans rights activists. Wow, I wonder why, when you admit into knocking the fuck out your girlfriend, why suddenly the people opposing you sound like trans rights activists. Could it be that, like, we're always attacking people for doing horrible stuff and just... I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on. Keep in mind, I am being harassed, bullied, and vilified by women. I've done nothing wrong. Like, it's just... They will just always sound like this, don't they? It's just pathetic. But... now he's deleted his account, obviously it's just pathetic. But as this person here notes... Oh... he also started a trend last week of straight cis men, gender critical men, making profiles on queer women's dating apps. So he did it, and also this guy did it. Richard set up an account on her social app for lesbians, run by TRAs. I have already had likes. This is the shit that they deal with. So here's his profile, and he got thousands of likes for this. Well, 1,000 likes for this. And then, do you know who liked him first? Do you know who just, look, this is a man pretending to be a lesbian. Rah, rah, rah. Bill, genderqueer, she, her. Seriously. But this dude, is another gender critical activist man. And I know that because he's another one of my cringe reply guys. So this guy made a fake profile on a lesbian dating app to expose how bad the dating app was. And then he got liked by this guy who was doing the same fucking thing. And they both exposed each other. Like, you couldn't write it. It's just so ridiculous. It's just unbelievable how the things they're raging about don't exist, so they have to make them up. And then they rage about each other, make the things they've made up. Like, absolutely unbelievable. It's just so stupid. So I think there was another one here. Yeah, so he made his one. Yeah, just Philip Men. So here's his little profile. And just, my goodness. Just the most embarrassing, ridiculous people. Gender critical men, my goodness. Here's another one, just another while I was looking at some of the stuff that on a clear day I can see forever's highlighted. Here is from the Standing for Women rally, possibly on this date. So just get a little clip of this guy in action. Not this dude.
Weird.
So this dude just come and hit someone's phone and then just punched them. Is a gender critical man. Stood right next to Maria McLachlan. I don't actually know how to say her name. Sorry, Maria, but I don't really care about you enough to learn. But maybe she saw what went on. But I would guess that he was a gender critical man, and that's why he was there. And no one seems to have done anything about this, so there we go. If that had been a trans person, that would be on the front page of the Times. But it wasn't, so no one's ever going to talk about it. But, yeah, just another gender critical man while I was perusing Twitter, seeing what they're up to. But now we have, probably, I know I already pressed the clown button, but I think the official clown of the week is going to Nick Buckley, MBE. So he says, last week I was in Marks and Spencer's, which is a shop that sells all kinds of stuff, but it's quite good for bras actually. Sells women's clothes and men's clothes. Last week I was in M&S with my wife. She wanted a new blouse, so tried some on over her jumper. I was perplexed and told her to go to the changing room so she could take her jumper off. She declined. I asked why. In case there is a man in there, she replied. This has to stop. So, first of all, why did she do it over her jumper rather than when she could have taken her jumper off and then at least had a good fit? Like, you can wear 2 t-shirts or 2 blouses or whatever over each other and maybe not notice. But the main thing is, this is just fucking ridiculous. I don't know if it's true or not. Could be. At least one of the people in this story, either him or her, are ridiculous. But like, lots of the people were saying in reply, Marks and Spencer's has cubicles. Like, it's not just one big open changing room for women or open changing room for men. So there could be a man in a different cubicle, but not in the one she's in. Like all changing rooms, I've never been in a shop ever in my entire life that has had open changing rooms. I mean, have you? Anyone in the comments, have you ever been in a shop anywhere in the world where they've had open changing rooms for men and women separately? I don't think so. Obviously, it's nonsense because trans women have always used women's spaces, and even when they do have a divide for men and women, they still have cubicles. But even when they do have a divide for men and women, trans women have always been using women's spaces. And like, it's just so tedious. So anyway, I replied to this saying, yes, this ridiculous fear-mongering bullshit does have to stop. Trans women have used the changing rooms with your wife for literally her entire life, and it's never been an issue. Now you've bought into anti-trans hysteria and are scared of nothing. Because that is true. I didn't know who this guy was. I just saw that he had a number of followers. I don't actually think he was called Nick Buckley for mayor at the time when I replied, but maybe he was. independent candidate for mayor of Greater Manchester in 2024. So now you know. We'll find out a little bit more about him in a second, so you can see whether you want to vote for him or not. He's obviously a gender-critical man, so if you're LGBT, you probably don't want to vote for him. But he then replied saying, Katie is a good example of the problem society faces. A feminist whose ideology is poison, though she does not see it. Other women need to convince her of her errors. For spending time criticizing mental ill men will not change anything if we have Katie. Okay, number one, this doesn't even really make sense. For spending time criticizing mentally ill men will not change anything if we have Katie. Look. Okay, so what he's written doesn't really make sense. But he's trying to say, women, you don't know what you're talking about. You need to listen to me, basically. He's saying other women need to convince them, but like, obviously most women support trans rights, and it's him having a problem, so... And then also, just to add to how ridiculous this is, he's obviously looked at me and decided that I'm a cis woman. Which, whatever. But that's kind of an entire own of your whole fucking point in the first place. Because if your wife went in there and I was in there, she wouldn't even notice. And also, if we did ban me from the changing rooms, where would I go? I would be the one having to put my blouse on over my jumper because I didn't think to take my jumper off. So it's just a cell phone layered in stupidity. So I just thought, and I ended up dunking more on this guy. But I just wanted to I'm just so sick of this rubbish. Like, it's just so, you can generally gesture. I feel like if you're a right-wing commentator, you can be like, trans people, changing rooms, my wife, uncomfortable, and you're like, whoa, okay, yeah, we should change the entire law and ban people. You don't need any justification for anything. As soon as you start examining this and you're like, hang on, does Marks and Spencer's have open changing rooms? Like, what's going on here? Like, have trans women never used women's spaces before? Like, is there an actual problem with men being in changing rooms? Or even, is there a problem with trans people being there? No. It's all just total rubbish. Listen to what have they say? They've not no fucking idea what they're talking about. But they still can get, like, I don't know, this 7,000 likes. It's just depressing. I don't know whether I'm going to rant about this. This is some person who's recently started reply guying me, who has 100,000 followers. I'm going to do it. I'm clicking free now. You're watching me do it. So unlucky. So she seems to be a Glenna fan. So we had this discussion a little while ago. This is when I realised, I first sort of noticed who this person was. So he's, talking about this. We had this Kirsty Allsop thing. She's some kind of centrist who's basically said trans people aren't that bad. And had a little discussion. She told me not to bother. And then this Natasha Huckfield, like whoever she is, has said, having a preference for same-sex carers is now demonizing male nurses. No, that's not what she said anyway, but, the standard. Kirsty, I'd expect this from Katie for obvious reasons. But you're a woman, why aren't you getting this? I was like, what? Expect it from me? What are you talking about? I've never said that having a preference for same-sex carers is demonizing anyone. I've before asked if I can have carers the same sex as me. I'm not opposed to that at all. I've explicitly said about this. So I DM'd her being like, in case you missed this, like, what are you doing? Like, they make up a load of nonsense about me. Maybe that's where you've heard this from. Didn't reply. But has carried on just randomly sniping me. And here she just turned up just to say, Katie isn't a woman. Katie isn't a woman. She's a trans woman. Like, just absolutely pathetic. But it's just one of these people who... sorry, I'm just kind of ranting about some random person. I'm getting some rants out, okay? It's been like a whole week without turf wars, so I need to rant about some of these losers I've encountered. Sorry if this is a bit petty, but we're doing it. She's been like... she was saying... I don't wish harm on anyone. But she does support changing the Equality Act to make it so I can be banned from public spaces. So she does literally wish harm on people via the form of reforming the Equality Act to take away trans people's rights, which is harmful to trans people, but not obviously doesn't wish harm on people as in violence or whatever. But it would harm me if they took away my human rights. Like, that is a harm. I'm just so sick of these people who like come in and out people and write ridiculous things about my beliefs, which are just directly false. Don't respond to any of the times when I say, oh, you know, by the way, this isn't actually true. I wasn't being hostile in that DM. And just pathetic. I don't know, I'm just kind of ranting. But anyway, this dude, let's go back to this. Actually, I didn't plan to talk about her. We'll just go back to this dude. Just another unrelated tweet that he made like 1 hour later. I think it was 1 hour later. I don't know, when was this? 8:26 p.m. May the 10th. Oh no, it was like 1 day later. May the 11th. He said, a solution to the migration crisis would be for European countries to recolonize parts of Asia and Africa. This actual thing that he actually said. This Mr. I'm defending women wants to bring back colonialism. We could run these countries better, give their people a better life, and fund it through standard colonial bullshit. What else are we going to do? How are these people real? Like, how? What the hell? Like, it's just mad. Like, there are people from like 1741 still walking amongst us and still running to be the mayor of Manchester. Like, Manchester, you are fucked if this guy gets in charge, because he is a fucking clown. I've said the F word a lot this episode. We're not going to do this one because I can't be bothered. We're going to move on to J.K. Rowling, unfortunately. So here is her. Like, I've tried to avoid her for a little while. She's constantly saying stupid. She's just a generic GC. Like, she's no different to any other gender critical person, apart from she has a huge platform. So she says kind of generic gender critical things all the time. She is an extremist. She believes all the most extreme stuff, but she is a very tedious person, and I try and avoid talking about her, but talk about her too much anyway, and here we are talking about her again. So here she says, logic a 9-year-old could demolish. Dogs bark. This isn't barking, therefore it isn't a dog. And yeah, that is obviously false. Because sometimes dogs do not bark. Okay, well done, J.K. Rowling. You have absolutely smashed this. So let's see what they were saying. So they're replying to someone which she's cropped out. How are you this confidently wrong? Lots of women don't menstruate. Some are postmenopausal, some take the pill, some have had a hysterectomy. Did they stop being women at some point? So she is suggesting that this person is saying, women menstruate, this isn't menstruating, therefore this isn't a woman. So, and she's been like, ha ha ha, obviously some women don't menstruate. You're a fool, ha, I've got you there. But do you know the reason that we have to keep saying stuff like this, like lots of women don't menstruate, isn't because we think that women not menstruating stop being women. It's because gender critical people constantly say, you can't menstruate, you're not a woman. Constantly. Like, that's literally something that someone says to me every single day of my life. They say something along the lines of like, oh, if you don't have a uterus, then you're not a woman. And then you say, what about women who don't have uteruses? And then they're like, oh, a 9-year-old could demolish this. Like, yeah, it's not me saying this stupid fucking claim. It's you. It's the gender critical people who are saying things like, you can't be a woman unless you have, you know, ovaries. That's a claim that they make all the time. Literally every day. Like every single day, one of them says this. And then she crops off the thing and then plays some little game pretending they're stupid. And then this is just like the perfect response of some stupid gender critical man who's got some straight logo as his reply and is paid for a blue tick and got 700 likes for this. Nearly as good as the other classic. You sit on a horse, so a horse is a chair. It's just so, like, is this guy stupid, or is he a liar, or is he both? We'll probably never know, but probably both. The reason why we say this, you know, this isn't an actual claim. This is us being sarcastic when a gender critical man famously said that everything has strict definitions, and when we asked him for a strict definition of a chair, he gave a definition that included horses. This is the whole point. Gender criticals, like, they are so smugly confident that there is just a strict definition out there and that they know it. They are certain in that belief. So certain that when they say it and you point out a counterexample, it doesn't shake their belief at all. They're just like, well, you must be wrong because I'm always right because I'm gender critical. Therefore, I'll just take what you've said and flip it upside down. But the only reason anyone has said, oh, so you think a horse is a chair, isn't because they actually believe that. It's because you've just given a definition of a chair which includes a horse. This person is responding to someone who has just been told you're not a woman unless you menstruate. So this fucking J.K. Rowling nonsense, is she lying? Is she stupid? Is she both? Probably both. We'll never know. That's embarrassing. Like, this is the queen. Like, ugh. Another ridiculous gender critical person. So this is like, I think she was involved or was the organizer or was involved in organizing or was at the rallies of when Posey Parker went to Australia. She's like one of the more prominent Australian gender criticals. We have talked about her before. And she came out with this absolute banger. Like, she is, I don't know. I feel like I'm saying this all the time, but buffoonish even by gender critical standards. Maybe not quite Alison Bailey, but like, you know, far from Jane Claire Jones, somewhere closer to the Alison Bailey end of the scale. And she comes out with this tweet, like, big, you know, shower moment. Just suddenly thought of this, like, oh, this is let's dunk on the trans people of this. Well, get ready for a checkmate, because why aren't drag queens transphobic? They are literally a man in a dress. I've got you there. And people are defending them, reading books to small children, claiming they represent trans people. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to you because you're a fucking idiot. Like, what? Why are drag queens transphobic? Because they're a man in a dress. Because it's not transphobic to be a man in a dress. Like, the core of trans rights is, what, bodily autonomy. But then, like, the next most important premise is anyone can wear anything and present themselves in any way and still be themselves. Like, drag queens being men in dresses is amazing. They can do that all they want because a man can wear any clothes he wants. Trans men can also wear dresses. Some trans men are drag queens and they're also okay. And women can not wear dresses if they want, and they can wear dresses. Like, literally anyone can wear anything. Why would that be transphobic? Well, no one who has ever talked to a trans person would think this. But when you live in the gender critical world where you're telling everyone that trans people love stereotypes because that's what you think is good propaganda, like, she seems to believe her own propaganda and actually thinks that trans people love stereotypes, so they would be offended by drag queens, and is bamboozled as to why we're not. It's because your make-believe nonsense about trans people isn't actually real. That's why. And then, oh, defending reading books to small children. Why would there ever be an issue with a man wearing a dress reading a book to a child? Like, what's the issue here? Unless you're the one who loves stereotypes, claiming they represent trans people. I don't actually think anyone's claiming that. I don't think drag queens represent trans people. I think drag queens represent drag queens. And if some are trans people themselves, they represent themselves. Trans drag queens represent trans drag queens, and cis drag queens represent, like, you represent you only represent yourself, really. But it doesn't make any sense to you, Angie, because you don't really know what is going on in life, and maybe you should just sit down and read some books before you carry on doing whatever you're doing. Yeah, we're going to do this next one. I know we've run over a bit, but we always run over a bit. That's what this show does. And I'm still in rant mode. Still got energy to rant. So here is just some random, I don't know who this is. And they're saying no one deserves this level of abuse. Talking about Dylan Mulvaney, who is having sleepless nights after the constant abuse and has got a pylon. This lady has said the most mild, bland nonsense that, like, not nonsense, nothing statement. No one deserves this level of abuse. Yeah, obviously. She is working and trying to make a living. How is it her fault if the companies are employing her? So presumably she's got a pile-on because this lady is probably right-wing or in the right-wing ecosystem. I don't know. But saying trans people don't deserve to be abused is enough to get a pile-on in right-wing space. And this lady comes in with, it's a man with a penis, who suddenly realised that prancing around looking like a porn star or teenage girl was very lucrative indeed. You have a daughter, this should terrify you. So I replied, and I got involved with this, had a little back and forth with this loser, and said, she is a woman. I don't know what genitals she has because I'm not a pervert. She doesn't look like a porn star, but it wouldn't matter if she did. I guess, like, the phrase looks like a porn star is probably garbage because lots of, like, porn stars look lots of different ways. I guess if you said the porn star look, people would probably have a mental image that would be generally correlated. So I think you could see that, but I think mainly when people say that it's an insult. It's insulting the person they're saying it to, and it's also insulting porn stars. Because they're saying, there is a look. I mean, it's just kind of like, you look like a whore kind of comment, isn't it? Or teenage girl. It's just like which one does she look like? Does she look like a teenage girl or does she look like a porn star? Or are you trying to make some absolutely disgusting comment there? Anyway, I said, you're a horrible person and a bad parent. And I think that's probably all true. And then she's replied, he is a man. I know he has a penis because I can see it. Absolute fucking weirdo. I can see it when he prances around like a man in a leotard. Like, are you trying to say that she's prancing around looking like a porn star or a teenage girl or a man? Like, pick one. I mean, you could be at most two of those things, but some of those combinations are disgusting. You could be a porn star and a man, but like none of the other combinations are allowed. And what are you talking about? And trust me, I am a brilliant parent doing what parents should do. A parent. Fuck off. Like if you're saying this, if you're staring at people's genitals and saying that porn stars and teenage girls and men can all be the same thing, like there's hopefully you've never talked to your kids about LGBT issues because you're wrong about them. I said, good parents don't teach their kids that LGBT people are subhuman. Like I said, I wouldn't know because I'm not a pervert. And, that was kind of it. I don't think she replied again. But, this is just a generic gender critical person. They write something disgusting. They make weird comments about sex work. They make other weird comments. They try and suggest that trans people... Like, why would Dylan Mulvaney... Why would just a random trans person, or even in the disgusting bullshit gender critical world, why would a man in a dress doing a 30-second advert for beer terrify you because you have a daughter? Like, what are you actually fucking talking about? As such nonsense. Anyway, yeah, I just thought, fucking generic gender critical person. But then I clicked on her profile and it turns out she is an NHS GP. So that is the National Health Service of the UK. This is where 99% of the people in the country get their healthcare. Also writes for the Daily Mail. What a surprise. The Talk TV presenter. Hopefully she spends so much time working for these bullshit news channels that she doesn't have time to be a GP. But this is terrifying. Like, this is what trans people are up against. Like, you might get a GP who writes things like this. Like, I know he has a penis because I can see it when he prances around like a man in a leotard looking like a porn star or a teenage girl. Like, there's no way, absolutely no way, that any trans person is going to get okay healthcare and be treated properly by someone who writes things that disgusting about trans people. Are just horrific. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't possibly comment on the previous history of this person's work. I'm not making any allegations. I'm just saying this is terrifying, and I would not want this person. Personally, I would not want this person as a doctor. I wouldn't feel safe. And I don't know how anyone with these kind of views could say that, but it's just disgusting. And like I've had a situation before where I've gone into my GP and just asked for a repeat prescription and they've just said no. And it just makes you think, like, why would you do that? Why would you just deny someone healthcare they've already been prescribed, they've already been on for years, if you've not got some kind of disgusting views about them? Like, I don't know. But maybe she is a decent doctor and manages to keep her gender critical views away from work. Possible. I don't know. Oh, we're doing our alien now. We're moving on. Last thing of the week. So I just discovered this absolute masterpiece of transvestigation material. And it's just going to disappear so you can just take in the full glory. Just look at this. This is amazing. This is what all transvestigation stuff looks like to some degree. They always have like a colourful background. Loads of shots of, you know, people. Here we have Denise Austin, who is a American workout celebrity coach person. We've got some unfortunate angles from her, like down here is not the best face. But, you know, she's doing workouts. She's not always going to have a smiley face. Then you always get, like, lines. You're meant to know what these lines mean, but I don't really know what these lines... I think they're trying to say shoulders wider than hips. I mean, I think that's true for a lot of women. Maybe not. We always... So this is a classic. You get some, like, blurry photos, some, like, weird stills. This one is clearly trying to say she has an Adam's apple, because that's what they always say when they zoom in on the neck. Like, this one down here. That's what that's trying to say. But, oh, why am I disappearing? I'm back. Like, maybe this is pointing into a collarbone. Apparently women don't have collarbones. We also get the obligatory arrow pointing to the genitals. This one's just labeled daughter. I guess this is her daughter, and they're saying that because her daughter also has shoulders wider than her hips, that, like, what, her daughter has inherited the fact that she's a man from her mum? Who knows? Then what's so good about it? It's just so good. I just saw this bit up in the top right. Just with the smiley face. The skull. This is... If you hadn't seen this before, you'd be like, what the fuck is this? You've always got to look at these in more... Because you get the gist. You're like, oh, it's just fucking nonsense conspiracy stuff. But you always have to look at these in more detail, because the more you look, the more hilarious they are. So this is the male skull picture they always superimpose over women's faces. And they always line up, like, the eyes and the teeth or whatever. But then the skull just stops at the hairline, like as if your skull just stops here. And then it doesn't go to the side of her face or cheekbones or anything. It's just so good. But then we have this, like, just a picture of they've got from, like, clip art or whatever, and he's saying, or she's saying, or I don't know, oh, for Pete's sake, for some reason. They often have this kind of, like, oh, as if anyone's falling for that kind of attitude that they, like, try and communicate in their little propaganda leaflets. And then we get some pictures of how this could be anyone's hands, like, just some hands. But presumably this is Denise Austin's hands. And here we have one doing this, which is the, like, Baphomet symbol. Like, whenever you see Baphomet, who is like, has the head of a goat and then has boobs and then a penis or something. Baphomet's the trans demon or god or whatever. I mean, I don't think historically they were, but that's what transvestigators have decided. So this hand, like, could be anyone's hand, could be anything. But these other two here are so blurred that these were almost certainly in-action shots from one of her, like, workout videos. So, I mean, if you've ever done this and then in the moment it's just your hands move through this position, you are now Baphomet. You are trans. That is evidence. Like, the claim here is that someone's wanting to sneak in some reference to Baphomet in their exercise video, so has had to just or sneaky Baphomet. And then this one, it's just someone showing four fingers. And I think we actually covered this in a different episode. One of them claimed that this was a sign you were trans if you did this. So I don't know. It's just glorious. I just love this stuff. This is so good. Pillar neck, even with the jaw. Who knows what that means? Well, transvestigators presumably, like little skeletons here. Don't know which one's male and which one's female. It's not the point. You just pick whichever one you like. Like, presumably she has straight shoulders here, so they're saying this one's male. So when I sit with my slightly sloped shoulders here, that makes me female. What do they call? Double invert? That's what they call people like me who are secretly cis women who transition to men to transition back to trick people into something transgender. There you go. That was this episode of Turf Wars. I did some rants this episode. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Turf Wars. Probably will be back next week. I don't know. I felt like I needed a break. I'm feeling quite good about this now. It's always good to get these rants out, but it was kind of stressful this week coming back to Earth and realizing how garbage the situation is in the UK. I just feel like if this EHRC thing went away and they banned conversion therapy and then we got new government, I don't know, I might just disappear and go and live my life and have fun and play Pokemon cards. I don't know. Just a reminder, please write to your MP if you find that stressful. Go on my channel and watch the video, watch along with me and write with me. I did a video on that and I think it could be quite helpful. But yeah, thanks everyone, and I'm glad we're back in the studio this week. We will be back next week, and I'll see you then. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Subscribers are ramping up, it's going really good. See you next week, 9 PM UK time. Bye!